Welcome to the Tuning In podcast, where we talk alignment, intuition, and our internal guidance system. We cover woo-woo topics in an approachable and practical way. I'm your host, Dana Evans of Alignful.com. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Tuning In podcast. We're at episode 66. And we're in week 5 of the sloth experiment, and this is Christmas week, if you celebrate that. And this week, one thing that's been coming up for me, and this came through actually in an inner voice session that I had last week, was that it's okay for me to be in the dark. The dark meaning the unknown, meaning kind of a cocoon in my home, meaning just the tar of the transition of what I'm going through. And what I've noticed recently is that I really have desired to be in more of a cocoon space. And what that looks like is I've been keeping the blinds closed in my living room. We kind of have blackout blinds in our living room, and so it keeps the light out pretty well. But I've been waking up really early, right, which is a dark cocoon phase of the morning. And then I've been keeping the blinds closed longer because I just have desired to be inward, to feel contained. How that also looks is when I take a shower or a bath, I have the lights really dim. And again, close all the doors and just create that space. I sleep with an eye mask. And all of that is coupled with this desire I have to be cozy and warm and comfortable. And now here I'm in Colorado. Naturally, that is a desire. It's December. It's relatively cold out. It's been snowing a little bit recently. So my desire to be warm is really strong. But I was thinking about how each of us, we need to have our comforts. We need to allow ourselves the small comforts in everyday life, especially when things are challenging, especially when the world is a little confusing right now, and you might not have some of your normal comforts, like meeting a friend for drinks, right? Or going out to dinner at your favorite restaurant, or traveling to see family. And if you don't have those, then it becomes really hard to settle, right? To feel settled in your day. I was feeling over the past week like a little uneasiness, and I spoke about it specifically, the anxiety that came up last week on the podcast, but I also noticed just this inability to fully settle in. And I think about my cat sometimes. So some mornings she'll sense John and my energy, and it's like she'll walk over to our lap and try to do that, and then that's not good. And then she'll try to go sit on her poop by the fireplace, and that's not good. Then she'll go nurse on a blanket, and that's not good. Then she'll go sit by her PlayStation to play. She'll try to eat, she'll drink water, and like you can just tell she can't quite settle in. And that's how I was feeling recently. And I'm like, well, what's missing? And what I realized is what was missing is some of those everyday comforts and coziness that I was craving. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start embracing that. And for me, it all revolves around being really warm and cozy. And then everything else comes from there. So one of the things I love to do to help me settle is put on really warm socks. And usually I, of course, do that after taking a warm bath or a shower and just get really warm, then put on my coziest, clean clothing that includes socks or my little slippers, my little foot duvets. And then we have some really cuddly blankets that I love. And I like to turn on the fire or light one of my beeswax candles. I love to have a cup of tea or coffee or red wine or like a hot toddy. And then I love to make really comforting foods and then contain all of that in a really dark space. And I promise you, this is a beautiful thing for me. I'm not like hiding and depressed. I just feel like being contained and hugged right now. And so for the food aspect, last night I made an Indian curry with some naan bread. And oh my gosh, that is like a bowl of comfort, right? It's full of vegetables and broth and coconut milk and ghee and spices, and it like warms the soul. And then after that, I read by the fire and just gazed a little bit at my candles. And I'm just like setting the stage for you. I'm just giving you little ideas of how to create a cozy container within your home. Because those are some of the places that we always come back to, right? We're in our homes a lot more. One, because it's winter. Two, because, lockdowns here and there. We're not traveling as much, right? We're not driving to work. Like just a lot of the things that we would normally do, we're not doing. So you end up being in your home. And so my question for you is, how can you make your home a really cozy container that becomes a place of comfort? And it takes a little extra effort, right? Especially if you're working from your home, if your kids are home. So it's like you wake up, you're at home, you're in your pajamas, the house might get a little bit messy, the kids might be home, the pets are home, your spouse is home, you're working out at home, you're working at home, you're cooking at home, you're cleaning. And it's like all of a sudden you're in the same space. And my home isn't particularly big, so all of the spaces kind of start to merge. And what I find is when that happens, that's when I start to have that unsettled feeling. It's like I don't have a container for each of my things. Like, where am I going to do my yoga? Right? Where am I going to read and have my tea? Where am I going to meditate? Where am I going to do my oracle card pull? Where do I go? Right? Where do I go for each of these tasks? And what's happened to me lately is like everything feels a little bit messy. So I'm not making the bed in the morning. And then like my clothes are kind of strewn in my closet. And then the laundry room's kind of messy. And then there's boxes on the dining room table, which is also my desk. And then John is super busy right now because he's writing a paper. So he's like taken over the office. And that's messy. And then the kitchen gets messy because we're both home and we're in the kitchen all day. And then we go to do a run in the garage and the garage is messy because I haven't finished selling the things that are in there so that we can like settle that as our gym. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, the place that I'm stuck and here all the time is not feeling good, right? It's making me feel uneasy and it's not bringing me that comfort and coziness. So what I plan to do, because I haven't done this yet, right? I'm sharing this with you. Well, maybe by the time this episode comes out, I will have done it, but I'm sharing this with you as something that's kind of come to me recently of, I've kind of lost track of my space. And my plan is to bring that back home, right? Make my home more of the space I love and want to be again. Because recently, like my feeling, I talked about this earlier in 2020 of like this Groundhog Day effect. And suddenly that's kind of come back. It went away and now it's back where I'm like, wake up, do my morning routines. I'm even getting kind of bored with my morning routines. And like, again, everything's a little like messy. And so it's like not even as fun. And so I'm like, I need to do something to bring me back, right? To bring me back home, bring me back to self. Personally, space is one of the most important things for me. Like my space, like I don't work well if my space isn't nice. And I'm not working a ton right now. So I think that's part of why I've let things slide. And John is so busy that like, he's really good at singular focus. So when he's really working on something, he doesn't really see any mess. So it's up to me if I want to make the space beautiful again. So I have like the aspects. I think this is what I'm connecting as I'm talking to you guys. Is like I have the aspects of like the coziness. Like I wear my socks. I've been taking a bath. I light my candles. I'm making the food. I'm having really delicious warm beverages. I'm using my corn bag, my microwave that keeps me warm. But that's only one piece of it. I'm not integrating the cozy space of the home. And so that is kind of my intention. And I ask you, like, if you're feeling a little bit unsettled right now, where can you look and say, okay, where's the disconnect, right? Where am I working in every room of my home and never creating a space for relaxation, right? Or where am I taking my time away from myself and like focusing it on screens, for example? And how can I kind of come back home and create that cozy, comfortable container that's just for me? And then choose to spend time in that container so that you can recharge. Because when everything is happening out of our homes, it becomes difficult to separate. You wake up, you can open your computer immediately and work. You can work until you close it and go right to bed. And so how can we start to create these little spaces in your space, in your home, that feel more nurturing? So for me, like immediately I see my bedroom and my living room and my bathroom are the main places where I can create a container that will hold space for me. That is not a place where I'm going to work, and it's not a place where I'm going to work out. And it's really just a place for me to be. John and I can have conversations by the fire in the living room. I can take my bath and have like my candles and my Palo Santo and care for myself, do my face masks and all of that personal maintenance in the bathroom. And then my bedroom, it really is my sacred space for sleep and rest. And so thinking about it in that zone, I'm like, okay, those are the places I want to prioritize, to clean them, right? To sage them and like not just clean the physical space, but clean the energy in there. Like energy gets stagnant, right? So move that energy, maybe play some music to kind of change the vibe in there. Change my bedding. I'm going to replace my bedding with, I have these navy linen sheets that are so warm that I love for the winter. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to change my bedding. I'm going to water all of my plants. I'm going to buy some more candles and have candles in every room. And then I'm going to choose to use those spaces to wind down. Last night, after my day, I had a hard day. No surprise, right? It happens a lot lately. But after my day, I said, I need to stretch my body. So I'm going to do some yoga. So I rolled out my yoga mat and just did 30 minutes of yoga. But that brought me home to my body. And then after that, it led to me doing a tapping session, right? Where I dealt with the feelings that came up that day. And that led me to a silent meditation, which led me to pulling a card. And I was like, oh, this is all bringing me back home. The only thing missing though was that it was like a messy space that I did that in. So I was able to do it, but I was like, my living room didn't really feel good for that. And so I was still a little uneasy. So I guess I'm just talking this through with you all today, but this is Christmas week if you celebrate, and you might be traveling, you might be going to someone else's home. This might be your first time home by yourself or without your family for the holidays. Who knows, right? What's happening? And all I'm saying is, what would it look like for you to spend some intentional time curating your space so that it feels like a nurturing, safe, comforting environment for you to be in, somewhere for you to unwind, somewhere for you to connect back to yourself, somewhere for you to feel really safe and loved by yourself, right? Because you're taking the time and energy and making it beautiful for you. And I'd love to hear what comes up for you when you think about that. Like, what are you desiring? What do you feel like is missing right now? And what can you do to bring that in? Maybe it's a plant, right? Maybe it's some greenery. Maybe it's candles. Like I said, I've been loving beeswax candles, and they naturally cleanse the air. I think they emit like negative ions, so they're unscented, but they cleanse the air. And apparently, a really great thing, especially if you've been looking at computers all day, is to sit at the end of the day, like in the dark, right? In your cocoon space. That's what I've wanted. And light the beeswax candle and stare at the flame, right? Which, as you can imagine, the flame of a natural beeswax candle is about as opposite as you can get from staring at a screen of your computer or tablet. Just to help reset your eyes, reconnect with the warmth of nature, right? The fire is a form of nature. It's a way to ground yourself. So what is that? What is missing in your energetic, emotional, and physical space? And what can you do to create a safe container, a cozy, comfortable home for you to come back home to yourself? Would love to hear on the comments, and I hope you all have a beautiful holiday, and I will see you next week on the Tuning In podcast. Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Tuning In podcast. As always, if this would resonate with anyone you know, please share the episode. You can follow along with my journey on Instagram at Dana_Evans, or find me on my website at alignful.com.